Into the fascinating history of the Africanization in Ghana's military. Our story examines the journey of African soldiers in the British Army, from being denied commissions to breaking barriers during World War II. We'll explore the challenges faced in increasing African representation in the officer corps and the pivotal role of key figures in shaping Ghana's military landscape. The story of Sergeant Seth Anthony, the first African to receive a King's Emergency Commission, marks a turning point in our military history. His success paved the way for others like Lt. Gen. Ankrah and Brigadier Joseph Edward Michel. We'll also discuss the slow progress of Africanization in the military compared to other sectors and the obstacles that hindered the establishment of a West African military academy. The policy shift under Lt. Gen. Sir Lashmer Whistler brought significant changes, including the focus on commissioning secondary school leavers and the formation of boys' companies. Finally, we'll explore how independence and improved service conditions transformed the public perception of the military, attracting more young Ghanaians to officer training. From all accounts, the African made a very good soldier, but for reasons best known to the British authorities, they were not considered good enough materials for commission. There was, however, a breakthrough during the Second World War, when it was seriously considered necessary to train Africans for responsibilities of command. Sergeant Seth Anthony, from a field of 12, was shortlisted from the ranks for this purpose. As a trailblazer, he distinguished himself in training even at the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, and he was granted the King's Emergency Commission in April 1942 as second lieutenant. He saw action in the Burma with 7th Gold Coast Regiment, 5th West African Brigade, under 81st West African Division, before being demobilized in 1946 after the Victory Parade in London with the rank of Major. Others to follow in the steps of Major Seth Anthony in 1947 were Lt. Gen. Ankrah and Brigadier Joseph Edward Michel. They were given emergency commissions, which were later converted to short service commissions in 1948. In 1948, Major General S.J.A. Otu was commissioned, and this was followed in 1950 by the commission of Major General Nathan Aferi and Brigadier Mohammed Bawa. In 1951, Major Benjamin O'Haty, Rear Admiral Hanson, and Major General C.C. Bruce were also commissioned. Between 1951 and 1956, 20 more Africans were commissioned. At the time of independence, out of a total of 245 officers, only 25 were Ghanaians. This figure cannot be considered as impressive if compared with the level of Africanization in other major national institutions. For instance, there were no senior African police officers in 1947, but by 1956, the service could count on 40 of them. By December 1958, the number had risen to 73, with only 34 British officers. Also, in the civil service and government departments, there were 89 senior Gold Coast officers. The number had gone up to 1,581 by 1957. From these, one could agree that the Africanization of the officer corps of the military dangerously lagged behind. It is pertinent to note that with this background, General Nicholson, the GOC in charge of the West African Command, had advised in 1949 that it was only with the establishment of a West African military academy that the Army could improve its Africanization rate. His proposal, however, could not materialize because of three basic obstacles. 1. Recruitment of adequate staff of the right caliber to train potential officers. 2. Prohibitive cost of the scheme. Premised on the wrong assumption that it was professionally undesirable to mass-produce officers, coupled with the belief that the ideal number of officer cadets to be trained per year was estimated to be 10. Thus, to set up an academy only to train 10 officers a year was considered uneconomical. 3. Concerns about standards. The Army Council in London claimed that the standard of officers trained in West Africa would be low, and would therefore vary from those trained in Sandhurst. When Lt. Gen. Sir Lashmer Whistler took over from General Nicholson, there was a radical shift in policy. He insisted on commissioning secondary school leavers rather than men from the ranks. He also initiated the formation of the boys' companies in each of the RWAF's regimental training centers to give 14-year-olds military training. This was to ensure the steady flow of NCOs and tradesmen, some of whom could possibly become officers, and would also raise the standard of African NCOs and warrant officers. This singular policy did pay off very well in the end. The project of commissioning secondary school leavers suffered initial hiccups, as it did not attract the requisite clientele and interest from the general public due to a number of considerations. 1. The terms and service conditions of the Ghana Armed Forces was comparatively unfavorable. 2. There were at the time other job attractions with better chances for promotion. 3. The army was an occupation of low prestige. This was premised on the belief that only the failures, school dropouts in our society joined the army. However, the euphoria of independence in the late 50s, coupled with a positive review of the conditions of service to levels comparable to other careers, did a lot to change the public perception of the army, and thus attracted the needed attention from the youth. Another development, which also positively contributed to boost the interest of the youth in officer training, was the introduction of the concept of cadet corps in secondary schools, proposed by one Mr. Casely Hayford, an indigene, in 1953. The wind of change was so strong that it defied all reactionary forces. Though the colonial powers were reluctant to facilitate the Africanization program, the need for it could not be denied, particularly so when independence was attained on 6th of March, 1957. Africanization, as had been perceived by the likes of GOC's General Nicholson and Lieutenant General Whistler, was thus an integral part of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's vigorous policy to create a viable armed force for independent Ghana. Stay tuned for more updates on Core Clarity TV. I'm Richard Lamptey. Thank you for watching.